So Evan, in this video series, we're gonna talk about some of the things that they don't really tell you when you're learning to scuba dive. And in this video, we're gonna talk about shore diving in particular.
Yeah, so in my experience in learning how to dive or doing any certifications, they don't really tell you how to dive from the shore or how to react to the conditions, if they're good, if they're bad. What do you do?
Right, so that's what we're going to talk about here. So a lot of people learn to dive in a quarry, maybe in North America, but diving in different conditions on the shore is a topic that's not often covered. So let's deep dive into that. This video is sponsored by Adventures in Diving STX, the official SSI and NAUI dive shop on St. Croix in the US Virgin Islands. But more on them in a minute. So first on the list, before you even gear up, you should really go and evaluate the conditions from the beach.
Yeah, so you want to make sure the conditions are within your comfort zone and you're not going to get yourself hurt out there, and you just want to be safe.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the most critical point, is that you're diving within your limits, your experience, and your training, and that what you're looking at isn't above what you can really feel comfortable doing. Unless, of course, you're in a training scenario where you've got more experienced people with you that are kind of guiding and helping you along the way. Things to look for out there, right? You've got currents, longshore currents, you've got surge, you've got wave heights, you've got the swells that are kind of coming in. So there's really a lot to keep an eye on.
And you want to make sure that you know where the surf zone is for when you're getting in. You know exactly where that's going to be, and to be prepared for those crashing waves.
Right, so if there are waves, that's definitely something you want to take a note of. You want to note where they are and if you can safely kind of get through them. The surf zone is going to be the most critical part of any entry or exit when you're getting in and out.
You want to make sure you're ready for any of the conditions the water throws at you.
Right, so, and by ready, you really mean mentally ready. You're mentally prepared, and you can visualize what's going on out there when you're actually getting in the water. Now, you also want to be prepared from an equipment standpoint. You want to have everything that you need with you, ready to go and tested, so that you avoid any problems on the entry. So really, before you even get in the water, before you even get geared up, is when this whole process starts. You want to evaluate the conditions and really make sure you're ready to go. So next up, before we even get in the water, Evan, is what?
You want to make sure the people on shore know what you're doing.
That's right. So file a dive plan with someone. If you're at a location where there's a dive shop, certainly let them know. If you're got some friends on the beach and they're staying back, definitely let them know. If you're not really with anyone, make sure you text somebody or let somebody know where you're going and what you're doing. The time of entry and the time of exit are super important pieces of information to pass along to who's ever going to be monitoring your dive plan. So now that we've checked out the conditions, we're happy with that, we're all prepared and ready to go. We've let somebody know where we are going and when we are expected back. It's time to get in the water. So first up is really just approaching the water and walking up to it and just waiting a moment again and reading the water right before entry. And when you're there, the next best step to do is inflate your buoyancy control device, or your BCD, right?
Yeah, so having your BC inflated ensures that you are buoyant on top of the surface of that water.
Yeah, and then next up, you want to really get your mask in place. It's always wise to enter the water with your mask fully in place, unless it's like a glassy lake out there, then maybe you want to wade into the water and put it on a little more relaxed. But more often than not, if there's some wave action at all, it's always best to really have your mask on your face and in position. Sometimes we see people with their mask on the back of their head. Evan, what do you think about that technique?
I think the mask, having it on your forehead or the strap on your forehead, is a little slippery, and if a big wave comes and hits you in the face, your mask can go flying off your head.
Right, that's the big downside to that one. If you enter the water with the mask strap sort of on the front of your face and the mask on the back of your head, it's really easy for a wave just to come and grab that mask right off the top of your head and take it with it into the water. And then, of course, it's really hard to find your mask when you don't have a mask.
Yeah, you can't really see anything at all.
Plus, it's just probably floating around in the surf and the surge and in the water, and it's going to be very, very challenging to find. So we recommend keeping your mask on in place when certainly getting in the water through any surf or surge or any interesting water conditions. At this point, we're all ready to go. You've kind of been standing there watching the water, getting your BC inflated, getting your mask fully in place, and now you've picked the right time to enter the water. And it's critical to kind of watch that water in advance again to make sure you know the timing of the waves and the period between sets of waves, so that you can enter when the water is going to be at its calmest, or you can predict when it's going to be there. It's not always a guarantee that the water is going to turn out the way you predict it, but you've got a better shot at it if you stop and read that water. So now that you're taking your first step into the water, you need to watch the terrain, right? You got to really watch your footing.
So watching for rocks is a big, important step. You don't want to take a wrong step. You don't want to hurt your ankle. You don't want to hurt your foot. And it's just, keeping your footing is a good idea for also keeping your balance from those waves as well.
Yes, which is one reason we really recommend walking in forward. Some recommendations have you walking in backwards and kind of looking at the waves and conditions over your shoulders as you do so. That's something that we really don't practice, but we recommend kind of walking into the water forward so that you can really see everything that's going on right around you and you can react to it. And the best way to really take a wave is kind of stand up and turn sideways to it, really get a nice wide stance, embrace yourself nice and strong. You can use a hand as well and hold that mask and regulator in place. So through the whole evolution, you want to move pretty quickly. So next up is really getting our fins on. And Evan, the best way to really do this is by turning your back to the waves. In this way, you're not kind of walking backwards towards the beach, putting on your fins, while the waves are also pushing you in that direction. This way, you've kind of got the waves behind you. They can break a little bit around you if needed. But if you can get those fins on 1, 2 pretty quickly, maybe you've got some spring straps, but be familiar with whatever straps you have so that you can really don those fins as quickly as possible and then get through the surf zone, yeah?
Yeah, and another tip for getting through that surf zone, if they are overhead waves, I do suggest duck diving and making sure everything's secure, your mask, reg, and making sure you just get under that top force of the wave.
So Evan, that brings us to a great point. Earlier we talked about fully inflating our BCD before we get in, and I think everything is really dependent on conditions and situation. So sometimes you may want to just partially inflate that BCD or inflate it just halfway so that you don't have the full buoyancy of that BCD pushing you up. And if you're going to duck dive a wave, that's a great time to just partially inflate that BC. That way you can kind of get under that wave even easier, because the majority of the energy of the wave is going to be up on top and braking, and there's going to be a lot less energy underwater. So if you've definitely got some bigger overhead waves like you do in California and other places of the world, being able to duck dive the waves is certainly one of the better approaches to it. So all in all, Evan, the surf zone here is the most critical point really of the shore entry, and it again is all dependent on the current conditions, but you really want to get through there as quickly as possible with taking the least amount of time. The best place to be is on the other side of where the surf is breaking. But Evan, it can take a lot of effort to get out into the water, and we're going to talk about getting back in here next. But let's talk about our sponsor for this video, Adventures in Diving STX. And that was totally your line again, and I just stole it, didn't I?
Do you want me to do the first part?
No,
and then you say Adventures?
Just forget it. Let's talk about Adventures in Diving STX. They're an awesome dive shop here on St. Croix. Well, Evan, whenever you're shore diving here on the island and you're unfamiliar with any area, really anywhere, it's always recommended to hire a local guide. And one of the best places you can do that here on island is with our sponsor for this video, Adventures in Diving STX. These guys have a full-service dive shop. It's right downtown on King Street in Frederickstead.
Yeah, Adventures in Diving is the official SSI dive shop on St. Croix, and they offer a wide range of experience and dive certifications, starting from just trying scuba, being a basic scuba diver, up to more advanced diving certifications.
Adventures in Diving STX also offers several ways to get in the water.
Yeah, they do shore diving, night diving, and they even offer snorkel tours, which you can do for a full day, half day, or even just one tour.
So not only can they guide you out there, Evan, they also have all the equipment that you need to get there.
Yeah, they offer all rental gear. If you're just doing one day, you can rent it out for the day, but if you're doing a longer stay here and want to dive more, you can rent it out for the whole week.
Right, and they have everything that you're going to need, from BCs to regulators, masks, fins, snorkels, snorkel vests. They've got it all. So if you're looking at scuba diving St. Croix, make sure to stop by Adventures in Diving STX or give them a call. We're going to have all that information down below in the description. So next up for us is really getting back in once we're done with our dive.
Yeah, the best way to get back in is actually kicking as far in as you can under that surf zone if possible, and past that surgy water that you definitely don't want to get up in and get hit by a wave right away.
Yeah, so again, it's all really condition dependent. So if you pop up outside before the surf zone, you can kind of take a look and see what's going on and make an assessment if you wanted to. But really one of the best ways to get back in if there's any kind of wave action is to stay down under the water and to swim under that surf zone back into the beach, moving in as close as you possibly can in, I would say, about waist deep of water.
Yeah, and once you get up, you want to take those fins off and get back in shore as fast as possible.
Yes, for sure. You want to be as quick as you possibly can with getting out. So again, standing up in about waist deep water gives you enough water under you to kind of support your tank and BC so that you're not fully supporting the weight of it yet. And you can kind of sit down a little bit and quickly get those fins off so that you can walk back up onto the beach. Now, the number one thing I see divers do when they're finished with the dive and they've come back under the surf zone and they're standing up in that waist deep water getting their fins off is take time to do what, Evan?
Talk about the dive.
Talk about the dive. Always talking about the dive. And I get talking about the dive. Who doesn't want to stand there and talk about the dive? It was a great dive. Maybe you saw some sharks, maybe you saw a cool wreck. Who knows what you saw under the water or what happened? Or maybe something didn't go quite right and you want to talk about that. But nonetheless, standing in waist deep water with the surf zone kind of behind you, the waves don't really care about your conversation. The waves do not care if you had a great time. The waves don't care if you had a bad time. The waves just, well, Evan, the waves just don't care.
Yeah, always make sure you're watching your back and watching those waves.
That's right, because they are going to come get you regardless of whether you're talking about having a great dive or talking about having a challenging dive. They are going to be coming for you pretty quickly. So you want to get up, get your fins off and get out of the water and then have all those conversations. And of course, as you're getting out of the water, you can be watching over your shoulder to see what's going on behind you, to see where those waves are at. Of course, watching your footing for any rocks, as you talked about earlier, as you're getting out. And you can always be listening for the waves as well. I think a lot of divers kind of forget about their hearing as yet another sense. When those waves are breaking behind you, you can hear the rumble and the flow of the water behind you. And it's something that you can cue in on to be ready to brace yourself for a wave if one's coming. But Evan, there's some amazing shore diving in the world, and I don't know about you, but it's certainly one of my favorite types of scuba diving.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. And if you want to check out other videos like this, make sure to watch our shore diving versus boat diving video next.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Underwater.